It's a hard situation, but I understand that this kind of players, they have a lot of people around them, and making some choices that sometimes is not the first idea from the players. So I understand I can separate things. I'm always here for helping Marcus as another player, and they have to do what they have to do. I say they chose to do that interview because it's not just Marcos, and I understand that. So for me, it's as a coach.
Right, everybody, there you can see Ruben Amorim talking about the Marcus Rashford situation. He said sometimes it's about the people around him, the people making decisions that are not the right decisions. He said they chose Rashford, kind of people around him and his circle chose to do that interview. And you can ultimately see Ruben Amorim, the way that he's handled this situation, fantastic. He knows he's talented, but I think the reason why Rashford is not in the squad, he's not 100% committed to the Manchester United and the Ruben Amorim project. And ultimately, he's expressed his desire to leave, which ultimately means he doesn't want to play for Manchester United. I mean, he's not in the squad, I believe, to face Wolves. And ultimately, I think he probably would have played his last game for Manchester United. I think he said they chose to do the interview. The club will deal with the situation when it comes to it. He said he's focused on helping Marcus Rashford. But ultimately, you can see him, Amorim is thinking and saying what the fans are thinking. And that's why we do adore Amorim so much. I think this Rashford situation, he's handled it fantastically. He hasn't pushed him to his side. He said he chat to them every day in training. But he's just put him out of the squad just to allow the people who really do want to play. And ultimately, that's correct. Obviously, Rashford, we know he's a big player. He's a big brand. And one of the most... the players who's been in like the longest in this Manchester United team, but and the way that I'm going about, there's no player bigger than the club. Sir Alex famously said that ultimately it's right, because Rashford, whatever he says, whatever he does, it's always going to attract big media attention. And I think this one, the constant sort of questions asked to Amorim, we will kind of get the situation when we know when we're done with it, but he is being transparent with the media. And he ultimately is being correct. And I think the way that he's talking about this situation is absolutely spot on. Rashford didn't have to do the interview. There were loads of reports suggesting that he wanted to leave, but he could just left that in the media. Rashford decided to go out his way, do the piece with Henry Winter, and ultimately now has to deal with kind of the consequence of it. And I think the right decision was to leave him out of the squad. I think if you play Rashford game in, game out, what does that really say? You're not really getting enough from Marcus Rashford anyway on the pitch. And I think the fact that he's ready for his new challenge, why not just let him leave? I think he called out Marcus Rashford effectively and well in that interview that he did with Sky Sports. But obviously he's focused on helping Rashford. Let's see what happens. Let's see what develops. I think Rashford will leave in the summer. They're going to try and get him out in January, but they can't. Ultimately, it's sad the way it's ended for Rashford. But it had to happen this way. There was no other way I think it could have happened, slowly being phased out. It's not toxic. I think he just put him to one side. I don't think it's full intentions on being with Manchester United at the moment. And Amorim has done the best that he could and what he thinks is right and what his method to do so. He said Rashford does want to play, but it's what he thinks is right by the team. He said this Rashford situation is not having any effect and is not putting any danger on the team. It's just a situation which he has to control, and ultimately the situation which I think will be best. And I think Rashford will leave Manchester United. It would have been a bit sooner than expected, but I think that's what has to happen and is right. I think the right decision has to be made. I think Rashford leaving what will benefit Manchester United is becoming toxic, and it has been. He hasn't been performing in the pitch for the last few years, and it's time for him to leave. He's not engaged in the squad. We'll see if he comes back. I don't think he will. There's going to be clubs interested. Rashford is a talented player. Amorim said that, but he simply isn't delivering on the pitch. And I think the interview was done at the wrong time. And I don't think it was an interview that should have been done at that current moment. But again, Rashford chose to do the interview. He chose to say what he had to say. And if that's how he's feeling, then ultimately simply he can leave, because he said he's ready for the new challenge. I think he will be one of the big... Listen, for a rebuild, you're going to need to get rid of big players. Listen, I know Arsenal, we bantered them a lot, but Arsenal have done it effectively. They got rid of players like Aubameyang, Lacazette, big earners, players on a lot of wage who simply aren't cutting it. They may have had a few good seasons, but they're not enough and they're not part of the long-term project. And I think you have to do the same. We need an ultimate squad rebuild, and I think getting rid of Rashford would ultimately benefit the team. I would obviously keep him at the club, but I think the way that Amorim and Ineos look at it is there's someone you can get pure profit from. He's on 365 grand a week. The issue is, where do you let him go and how is he going to go? But listen, let me know your thoughts. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you are new, and let's see what happens on the situation. But I thought that interview was interesting, and I think Amorim handled it correctly. But let me know if you agree, disagree, thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.